Listen, if you will, as though you were leaning over the lip of a deep well and the water below were listening back. A rumor travels through the human mind like wind through wheat, a shimmer that says the ordinary is a costume and the extraordinary is what's wearing it. It comes late, when laughter has grown hoarse and the clock begins to act important. A whisper says, perhaps you are not only the name sewn into your shirt, and perhaps the world is not only the label on the box. Turn your head too quickly, and you may catch the universe grinning like a cat who has just hidden your keys. The danger is not that you will be harmed. The danger is that you may never be able to pretend quite as convincingly again. From the first breath, we are enrolled in a grand rehearsal. You receive a costume called a name and a prop called a biography, and you learn your lines by copying those who seem to know the script. The mask becomes so familiar that we take it for a face. We polish it, defend it, ensure it, and call that a being someone. And yet the glue is only glue. A question warms it. A laugh loosens it. A corner lifts, and suddenly the bright air touches the skin beneath. You discover that what you took to be the self is a verb wearing a noun, a dance posing as a dancer, a song that has mistaken itself for sheet music. Imagine a village where everyone sensibly agrees that the sky is green. The accounts say so, the hymns say so, and the punishments are carefully designed to protect the green truth. Then a child points at dawn and reports a blush at the rim of the world. At noon, the bowl above is a lucid blue. At dusk, it alloys itself into copper and wine. The elders form a committee on inappropriate color language. That is the hazard of noticing. When you see what most others don't, you are tried not for heresy, but for inconvenience. You have become a weather report that disagrees with the calendar. I am not here to scold the village. I am here to invite you to a more intimate way of seeing. Not the intimacy of possession, how dreary that is, but the intimacy of listening. It is what remains when words fall away and tone remains, like bees in a summer hedge or the ocean taking a long breath that you eventually realize is also your breath. Seeing what others miss is not hoarding secret information. It is unlearning a certain stiffness in attention. You pause. You let the world speak first. In that pause, the scenery changes on its own, and the props admit they were always actors. Naturally, this causes trouble. The economy thrives on a shared enchantment that tomorrow can be purchased. If you feel time as a trickster, if you notice that a later is a fox with a velvet tail that never arrives when called, the sales pitch becomes quaint. You may still enjoy the trinket for the sparkle of exchange, but you no longer kneel to it. And a customer who does not kneel is dangerous to any business that sells kneeling. Another danger is what you will first call loneliness. When your mask slips and the glue goes tacky, it is awkward to speak with people who are still performing without a blink. It feels like addressing a stranger in a mirror. But if you stay with the awkwardness, you find the masks are porous. Through the eye holes peers a gaze older than the mask, and you recognize it. The river speaks beneath the ice. The village calls it winter. The river calls it breath. What seemed like loneliness is the first intimacy of waking. Consider the way we say, my life, as though life were a coat in a closet, a possession to be improved and insured. We talk of optimizing this coat, waterproofing it, accessorizing it, making it fashionable for the season. But life is not a garment. It is a melody. You cannot own a melody without singing it. You do not get more music by choking the notes in your fist. You get music by listening, by giving space to the rests, by remembering that the silence is part of the phrase and not an interruption of it. The ego, bless its claws, prefers solos. It is a crab on a beach pointing at everything and declaring, mine. The crab is useful. It can scuttle you across certain sands. But when the crab takes the wheel, it drives through every mirror in the hope of seeing only itself. To see what most others don't is to recognize that the crab is a pet, not a sovereign. Place a tiny crown on his shell, give him a polite tickle, then sit him in the back seat. He will grumble, but he will be relieved. Leadership is heavy for such a small creature. Some will call you naive. They will say the world is iron, and a gentle gaze will be ground into filings. But clarity is not softness. It is a bravery that lets the facts remove your armor. Armor is what chafes. Walk barefoot on wet grass at dawn, and you will see. The cold starts you into honesty. Your feet remember what your head keeps forgetting. This planet is not foreign territory. Touch that even for a moment, and the headlines lose their hypnosis. They will continue to shout, but you will have stopped worshipping the megaphone. Let us be practical. How does one live after noticing? Notice again. Make the body your school. When you wash your hands, feel an ocean running over your knuckles. When you drink tea, taste the sun that has traveled through leaves to reach your... When you find yourself late, watch how time tightens in the chest. Loosen it by remembering that clocks are agreements, not gods. This is not a strategy to escape responsibility. It is a way of becoming responsible to what is real enough to touch. You may ask, or will others resent me? Perhaps. There is an unspoken treaty among people. I'll pretend if you'll pretend. Breaking the treaty invites diplomacy or war. If resentment arrives, be curious. Invite it to tea. Understand that resentment grows from the fear of being left behind. So do not abandon people, not by evangelizing your insight that only thickens the masks, but by being the sort of presence with whom others can safely loosen the strap. When one person relaxes, the room learns how. It will still be true that you do not fit every room, and that is all right. Some rooms are badly lit on purpose. It is not your duty to redecorate. Your task is to be available to the improvisation already playing you. Think of a trio in a small club when the audience listens with its whole skin. The bass begins a story in thick syllables. The piano answers with a joke. The drums start telling time and then deliberately forget. No one knows where the tune is going, and that ignorance is precisely the delight. Being what others don't is like having an ear for the key change the chart has not predicted. The danger begins when you imagine you alone can hear. Vanity builds a museum around living music. Humility turns you porous and lets the whole room sing through your bones. And here is a confession. The more you see, the more you laugh. Not mockery. Laughter like a door swinging open, because the game reveals itself as game. The mask smiles back when you smile at it. The world is not a problem to be solved, but a friend playing hide and seek. When the friend jumps from behind the sofa and cries a boo, you do not file a complaint. You laugh and bow to the trick. And then you hide, and then you seek, and there you are together alive. You see, once the curtain trembles, everything learns to speak. Clouds are the sky practicing handwriting. Trees are patient rivers trying the vertical. The city is a hive that dreams in stone. And you, what are you? A choreography of breath, a grammar of blood, a question that likes to answer itself with another question. This isn't mystical posturing. It's the direct taste of a world that keeps arriving before you finish naming it. The danger of seeing what most others don't is precisely that the names begin to relax, and relaxed names can no longer serve as barricades. The signposts wobble a little in their holes, and you realize they were not holding the road up after all. There is a monk, I met him in my imagination, who spent years collecting ideas like seashells. He arranged them on his windowsill in careful spirals and admired their logic whenever the light was just so. One morning, a strong wind slipped through the shutter and rattled the shells onto the floor. They cracked and lay there like ordinary chalk. He sat down and wept. While he was weeping, he heard the wind moving through the reed mat and saw sunlight quiver on the wall, like the skin of a lake. That was the beginning of his joy. He hadn't lost his learning. He had lost his fear of losing his learning. We have clever machines now and clever anxieties about them. Machines can multiply the speed of our habits, but they cannot manufacture the experience of belonging. Belonging is not an object. It's a verb between beings. When you see that, loneliness changes flavor. It becomes an interval in music rather than a hole in the map. You notice that trees are not solitary. They exchange sugars and gossip beneath the soil. Clouds are not solitary. They assemble and disperse like thoughts. Why should you be solitary when you are made of the same traffic? Share what you see, but choose stories over slogans. Slogans are helmets. They clank and obscure the view. Stories are windows. People open them for air. Tell of the day you were certain and turned out to be hilariously wrong. Tell of the money you lost and the laughter you gained. Tell of the conversation you dreaded and the friend who emerged from it carrying tea. People can argue with conclusions, but they are helpless before a well-told moment, because the truth of a moment is not a cudgel, it is a mirror. The mind will try to mine experience and file it. That is its vocation. Let it file. But watch how the map begins to boss the mountain and chuckle kindly as you take another step on actual stone. Ideas are walking sticks, not walls. When a stick breaks, thank it and find another. Otherwise, you end up imprisoned by the very tools meant to help you wander. I like to say the self is a dance, that the universe is performing at a certain point in space-time. Dances cannot be owned, they can only be done. The instant you say, I have the dance, you miss it. It has already turned the corner. The danger of seeing this is the shock of lightness. People worry, if I am a dance, what about duty? Love, children, debts, grief. My dear, the most graceful dancers carry weight. The ballerina lifts her partner. The drummer keeps time for tired feet. Being lighter does not mean being absent. It means moving with what you carry instead of mistaking it for who you are. Fear, too, will try to help in its clumsy way. It is a storyteller with a limited imagination. It repeats, step out of line and you'll be cast into the dark. But there is no outer darkness, only unfamiliar rooms in the same house. When you open the wrong door, and you will... The corridor is not a punishment, it is the house showing you how wide it is. The point is not to avoid missteps, but to become fluent in returning. What a relief to know you can begin again at any moment. You worry that seeing differently will make you irresponsible. On the contrary, it makes you responsible. Your senses wake. The person in front of you becomes more urgent than your ideas about the people. A sink full of dishes outweighs your grand plan for saving humanity, because for the next 5 minutes, the dishes are what the world is actually asking of you. Heroes who ignore dishes often forget the electricity bill, and darkness falls on the revolution. Wash the cup, pay the bill, smile at the mail carrier. This is not smallness. It is obeying the music you can hear. If you need a practice, try letting one ordinary thing each day be holy. A shoelace. The pothole filling with rain. The cough of a stranger 2 seats away. Holiness is not a rare spice sprinkled on life. It is the taste of life when you stop masking it with other flavors. Blessing is nothing more than attentive naming. Name a thing truly, and it opens like a window. Beware of pride masquerading as clarity. It whispers you have transcended all that. The moment you imagine yourself above the muddle, you are glued to it. Transcendence, if it means anything, is like smoke through a grill, through and out. You do not hover disembodied over the barbecue. You smell like supper. If you are really seeing, you will be tender toward confusion, others and your own, because you recognize it as the chrysalis of understanding. Humor helps. The universe is an impeccable comedian. The day you declare, I have mastered patience, you will find yourself behind the slowest cart in the market, late for a meeting, with wheels that squeak and a cashier who is new. This is not punishment, it is orchestration. Your declaration struck a note. The cart provides harmony. And the key changes. Sulk in the afternoon remains minor. Let us return for amusement to the green sky village. Suppose a storm comes, and the wet shingles reveal reflections of a true blue heaven. Panic ensues. Emergency measures are passed. A temporary suspension of blue is declared. You are asked to explain yourself. Do not argue wavelengths. Hand them towels. Help repair the roofs. And when a neighbor asks, what color is the sky? Look up together and share the astonishment. Agreement born of shared astonishment is sturdier than agreement enforced by fear. Notice how the body keeps its own kind of wisdom. Long before the board meeting begins, your stomach has issued a forecast and your skin has posted a small advisory. Trust this, not absolutely, which is another ideology, but intimately as you trust a friend. If your shoulders climb when a plan is discussed, the plan may need more air. If your hands soften in someone's presence, perhaps that is the direction to walk. Bodily knowing is not infallible, but is exquisitely fast, and it will let you revise without humiliation. People ask about purpose. They say, oh, what is my purpose? As though it were a treasure buried at the end of a grim maze. But the labyrinth is the treasure. Your purpose is to notice the turn you're making. To see what most others don't is to stop demanding a summary of the book while you're still on chapter 3. Read the page you are on with such attention that the ink rises into relief. Safety will object, but how do I know I am safe? Safety is a good seatbelt, but you did not buy the car to admire the seatbelt. You bought it to move, to risk the distance between here and there, because the scenery insists on being seen. The danger of fresh seeing is that you may fall in love with the scenery and forget half your errands. That is acceptable loss. Errands were always polite excuses for meeting the world. There is a story of a painter commissioned to depict the sea. After weeks, he presented a single wave. The patron complained, I ordered the sea. The painter replied, this is the sea arriving. That is the view from the open eye. You do not see a career. You see this email, this handshake, this quiet when quiet is the medicine, this speaking when truth wants a mouth. The sea arrives as a wave. Life arrives as this moment. Chase an abstract ocean and you will miss the tide at your feet. Now allow me a provocation. Enlightenment is often indistinguishable from play. Children building a fortress of cushions are learning architecture and treaties. When the fortress collapses, they learn impermanence and laughter. If you can play through work, sorrow, marriage, and solitude, then you have found the royal road. Play does not trivialize. It lubricates. It lets the gears turn without grinding. At times, pressure comes. Illness arrives. Grief knocks with a heavy suitcase and no appointment. Seeing differently will not cancel the visitor. It will teach you to make tea grief given tea, speak slowly enough to hear. Illness, treated as a messenger rather than a mistake, points toward a balancing long delayed. Pain may narrow the view, yet you are larger than the ache, because the ache is happening inside the room of your awareness. The room is not harmed by what passes through, and there is death, our favorite scarecrow. When you approach, you find the straw man is stuffed with yesterday's newspapers. Death is not an error, it is punctuation. It ends a clause, not the story. I do not mean your particular storyline continues verbatim. I mean the energy pretending to be you is released to pretend again. As rain becomes river, becomes cloud, becomes rain. Fear shrinks when you catch it befriending your aliveness, for death is the reminder that life is not a rehearsal. If you need a mantra, let me be surprised. Surprise is the doorway arrogance cannot squeeze through. Be surprised by your pettiness and by your courage. Be surprised when the person you dismissed becomes an out. Be surprised when a beloved plan fails beautifully and reveals a better one, waiting, shy as an understudy behind the curtain. You may wonder whether seeing differently requires withdrawal from society. Not at all. It invites you to meet society as a gardener meets a wild patch, with patience, humor, and a willingness to get dirty. Pull a weed, plant a seed, do not curse the seasons. The gardener does not demand that November be July. He collaborates with weather. Collaboration is the art of not being the author of the sky while being fully responsible for how you hold the spade. Originality has its paradox, too. Freshness feels like pioneering, yet the mountain you discover has been greeting dawn forever. Originality is simply catching up to what has always been true. Fly your flag if you like, then turn it into a picnic blanket and invite company. Share peaches, that is influence. Here is a small practice. At least once a day, give someone your unhurried attention. Not advice, attention. Let their words land before you pick any. When appropriate, ask a question shaped like a mirror. What do you notice now? The contagion is benevolent. People who are seen begin to see. Do not think that seeing differently makes you immune to foolishness. You will still trip over your shoelaces. Excellent. Each stumble is a bow to gravity, the silent partner in every dance. Stand up smiling. Nod to the ground. Begin again as beginners do with interest. If isolation is a risk of vision, participation is the remedy. Join something small. A choir, a cleanup, a weekly dinner that orbits kitchens like planets around a friendly sun. Do not wait for the perfect cause. Causes are costumes. Participation is the body underneath. When you are tempted to correct someone's illusion, examine your motive. If it is triumph, your words will grow thorns. If it is compassion, they will grow handles. Choose the handles. The point is not to prove that the sky is blue. It is to share the sky. One more thing about masks. They are not enemies. In theater, masks allow gods to speak without melting the stage. In life, roles allow us to conduct traffic so the intersection does not explode. Keep your roles, but wear them like hats you remove indoors. Bow to the hat, do not sleep in it. And should you doubt whether any of this is practical, review your breath this instant. You are being breathed. You can influence the rhythm, but you are not the drummer. Relinquishing control to participate more fully is not mystical. It is biological. Trusting this, you work better, love more skillfully, and rest without guilt. You become a citizen of the present with a passport valid everywhere. Finally, know that clarity is a climate. It comes and goes like weather, and even sages carry umbrellas. When fog returns, do not indict yourself. Make tea. Offer the small kindness at hand. Fog is only low cloud. It lifts when the sun remembers. And so we circle back to the first rumor, the cat's grin, the misplaced keys. Seeing what most others don't is not a license to scowl at the dance floor. It is permission to dance with your eyes open. You will still bump into people, still tread on a toe or two. But your apologies will be real because your attention is real, and attention is contagious in the best way. Gradually, the room tunes itself to a more honest pitch. If after all this you feel uncertain, that is a good sign. Uncertainty is the honest shadow of wonder. It says, do not carve idols from first glimpses. Let revelation breathe. Walk home slowly. Notice the lamp on puddles, the old dog treating the night like a poem, the way your hand reaches for the door and hesitates as if asking permission from the mystery that is you. You may feel a tremor, a loosening of some old knot. Let it loosen. When morning comes, do simple things with care. Open a window, eat breakfast as a sacrament. Thank the kettle. Send a kind message you do not have to send, not to be good, but to be real. In that realness, you discover that the danger of seeing what most others don't is also the privilege of loving them. You will laugh more, argue less, and when necessary, walk away, without rancor, without the need to win, because the road itself needs silence. So here we are. The well, the listening, the smile in the dark. Keep your eyes open and your hands gentle. Wear your rolls lightly, share your bread, trust surprise. When the fog returns, make tea and wait for sunlight to remember. Breathe. Listen, begin.